Jacob's Well, a popular swimming hole near Wimberley, will remain closed to swimmers for the foreseeable future.
And Hayes County officials say water conditions are not safe for swimming.
For years, Jacob's Well has mesmerized with its beauty while hiding dark and dangerous secrets below. This captivating yet treacherous site has long puzzled explorers, but underwater drones are finally uncovering what lies beneath. What they discovered is not only chilling but potentially deadly. The once hidden depths are now revealing the truth, and it's more unsettling than anyone expected. Brace yourself as we dive into the mysteries of Jacob's Well and reveal the haunting footage captured beneath its surface.
In the heart of Texas Hill Country, near the quiet town of Wimberley, lies a natural spring known as Jacob's Well. At first glance, it appears as a beautiful, clear, inviting pool set among limestone rocks. But beneath its surface is an underwater cave system that has claimed lives for decades. In an effort to explore the well's depths without risking human life, researchers deployed an underwater drone equipped with high-resolution cameras and lights. As the drone descended, it captured footage of the cave's formations and the calmness seen in the underwater world. The images revealed narrow corridors, silt-covered floors, and chambers that seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. In some areas, the drone encountered remnants of past dives, abandoned equipment, and personal items left behind by divers who never returned. But it was what the drone captured in the deeper chambers that terrified the whole world, simple yet extremely dangerous. Shadows across the screen and unexplained movements suggested the presence of something or someone in the dark. The footage was disturbing, raising questions about what truly lies beneath the surface of Jacob's Well. On a calm morning, a team of geologists planned to map the deep cave system inside Jacob's Well. They wanted to explore the parts that no human had safely reached. Because the well had a terrible history of losses, the team decided it was too dangerous for people to dive down. Instead, they chose to send a drone into the water. This machine, named Explorer, was built with special cameras and smart technology that helped it move through tight spaces without getting stuck. Mike Garfield was the person controlling the Explorer. He had spent many years working with drones and knew exactly how to handle tricky situations. On that fateful day, a small group of curious locals and journalists gathered to watch the mission. As Mike gently lowered the drone into the clear water, almost immediately, the drone's camera showed the beautiful, clear water inside Jacob's Well. Mike skillfully moved the Explorer down, deeper and deeper. The walls of the well were made of rock and curved around the narrow water path. Light from above quickly faded, and soon the drone entered the first chamber, about 30 feet deep. Mike guided the drone sideways into the second chamber, which sloped down and stretched ahead. Next came the birth canal, a narrow tunnel that had earned a bad reputation. The passage was so tight and full of loose gravel that even a small mistake could cause rocks to fall and trap something inside. Mike carefully slowed the Explorer's descent, using the drone's lights to reveal the gravel slope ahead. After passing the birth canal, Explorer reached the third chamber. This space was wider, with big rock formations and room to move more freely. The drone paused as Mike and the team scanned the area. The chamber seemed quiet and untouched, as if waiting silently to tell its story. Then, Mike pointed the drone toward the tunnel that led to the fourth chamber. The fourth chamber was the most feared part of Jacob's Well. As Explorer moved into the tunnel, the team felt a heavy silence. The drone's lights shone into the darkness, showing the tight and rocky path ahead. The walls seemed to close in as the drone carefully moved forward, avoiding loose rocks. Suddenly, Explorer's camera caught something shining in the dim light. Mike stopped and zoomed in. It was a piece of old diving gear, left behind by someone who had entered the well long ago. This discovery was shocking as it reminded everyone of the dangers below. The drone continued slowly, deeper into the tunnel. The path grew even narrower, filled with gravel and small rocks that could easily shift. Every move had to be precise. Soon, Explorer reached a spot where the tunnel opened up slightly. More remains appeared, including another piece of diving equipment and an old oxygen tank covered in mud and dirt. The walls of the tunnel were smooth and almost shiny, as if polished by water over many years. Mike carefully guided the explorer closer to a dark shape in the shadows. As the lights came closer, they saw something shocking: remains from a human body trapped between the rocks. The diver wore a torn and worn wetsuit, stained by years underwater. The skeleton was still there, and immediately, Mike finally broke the silence, calling attention to what he had just found. The news shocked everyone watching. This was no longer just a mission to explore the cave. Rather, it had turned into a search for a lost person. The drone stayed near the body, shining light on the scene. The diver's gear was rusty and covered in mud. On the wetsuit, a faded name tag was barely readable. With some effort, the letters came into view. It said Kent Maupin. Who is Kent, and how did he get into the well? This brings us to the details of one of the most famous incidents that took place at Jacob's Well.
The Kents experience Jacob's Well has a long history of fatalities. Between the 1960s and 1980s, numerous divers lost their lives exploring the cave system. Many were inexperienced or underestimated the challenges and dangers in the well's complex layout. On the evening of September 9th, in the year 1979, two young men named Kent Maupin and Mark Brashear made a choice that would change everything. Kent was not new to diving. He had done it many times before and was known for his bravery underwater. Mark, on the other hand, was still a student at San Jacinto College, eager to learn and experience new things. The two of them had formed a bond, brought together by their shared love for adventure beneath the surface. Kent had often spoken about Jacob's Well, a deep and mysterious water hole in Wimberley. He was fascinated by its dark corners and the danger it held, especially the fourth chamber, which many had avoided. This chamber was not only hard to reach, but also known for taking lives. Still, Kent had a strong desire to go where others had failed. He was not satisfied with just hearing stories or staying in safe areas. He wanted to see the place for himself, no matter the warnings. Together with Mark, Kent joined a group of divers from Pasadena. They camped out near Jacob's Well, preparing for the moment they would finally enter the depths. As night fell on that fateful day, Kent, Mark, and a few others put on their gear and stepped into the water. They knew the risks. Still, their goal was to reach the last chamber, the one that had scared so many before them. But Kent and Mark felt drawn to that chamber. It was not just about adventure for them. It was about pushing limits, proving to themselves they could face the unknown without being afraid. Instead, they appeared focused, pulling their tanks through the tight space, going in deeper. They didn't carry extra lights, and they had no safety ropes to guide them back. Their actions showed no signs of planning for trouble. They were simply driven by the need to go forward. Those who watched them go in could only wait and hope. After passing the third part of the cave, there was a small opening leading to another section. Many people who went through this part before never came back. On that important night, these young men stood at the entrance, slowly pulling their heavy air tanks behind them as they moved forward into the dark passage. Kent carefully moved his large metal tank backward through the tight space. Mark followed closely behind, doing the same thing. Joe watched quietly, feeling surprised and confused. Nobody had told him they planned to go this far. Mark disappeared deeper into the darkness, without looking back. Joe swung his dive light from side to side, hoping to catch Mark's eye. But Mark didn't react. His eyes stayed on the tank as he pulled it further into the shadow. Joe understood this was dangerous. Kent and Mark used steel tanks, with less air than Joe's aluminum one. Since they were going deeper, they would use their air faster. Joe felt his air running low and knew things were serious. He hit his tank with his knife to get their attention, but no one answered. Losing hope, Joe kept his light shining into the tunnel, hoping Kent and Mark would see it and find their way out. When Joe finally came back to the surface, the water had turned cloudy and unclear. This might have happened because stones slid down or the scared divers stirred up dirt. Joe's heart dropped, knowing Kent and Mark were likely gone. Soon, a police officer came and told Don Dibble and Paul Battaglia about the incident. Don, who was an ex-Navy diver with the highest diving certificate. Even though the chances of finding Kent and Mark alive were low, Don, Paul, and two others from the volunteer rescue team decided to try. They grabbed gear from Don's dive shop and quickly went to the site. When they arrived, they found the other divers who had escaped. These divers were tired and shaken after searching without success. One of them said he saw something that looked like bodies covered by stones inside the cave. Don looked at the deep, dark hole of the well. It was night, and the opening looked very scary. He decided it was safer to wait until morning before trying to recover the bodies. Quietly, Don spoke to the lost divers, as if telling them to wait for daylight. The team got ready carefully for the next day. They knew the well was dangerous. Strong water currents, narrow spaces, and loose stones made the dive hard. The deepest part of the cave, where Kent and Mark disappeared, was the most dangerous. Many people who went there did not return. Even so, the team was ready to face the risk of bringing their friends back. When the sun came up, the water was still dark and calm. At 10 in the morning, the team arrived again at the well. 2 divers started carefully moving the gravel in the narrow passage. They used small tools called trowels to clear a path big enough to get through. But instead of making things easier, moving the gravel made the situation worse. The dirt and stones became unstable and harder to manage. Don heard different opinions about whether the rescue was possible. After thinking it over, he decided to dive into the well himself. He took a game warden named Calvin Turner with him for help. As they went down, they left extra air tanks at 25 and 75 feet in case they needed more air. They also put out safety lines to guide them back. Once deep inside, they shined their lights up toward the ceiling of the 3rd room. They wanted to be sure the bodies were not floating above them where they could not see. The place where the 2 missing divers had last been seen was still blocked by gravel and stones. Don checked how much air he had left. His gauge showed 1,100 pounds per square inch. This meant he had about 10 minutes to breathe at that depth. Carefully, he pushed his head and shoulders into the narrow opening. He held the safety line with one hand and shone his light forward with the other. All he saw were small gravel pieces hitting his mask as water flowed quickly through the tight space. At this point, something shocking was discovered. The fatal gravel bed. Don understood that bringing the bodies back would not be possible unless the thick layer of loose gravel was cleared first. But before anything could be done, something terrible happened. Gravel shifted suddenly and trapped him at the entrance of the narrow passage. The water turned cloudy, and Don could not see anything. His arms were stuck, and he could not make noise by banging on his tank or signaling for help. As he struggled, his breathing became faster. He knew this would use up his air quickly, and it did. He was running out of time and out of breath. Don started to understand that he was about to pass out. Despite this, he stayed calm and decided he wanted to die quietly. He thought about how drowning might feel and wondered if he could make it happen faster. He considered breathing in water or swallowing it. However, Don did not want to panic and lose control. So instead of inhaling, he chose to drink the water. He took a few large portions, felt himself getting lightheaded, and accepted that this was the end. Then something unexpected happened. His body reacted on its own and began to jerk. That motion freed him just enough. Water had filled his mask, but he could now see. In front of him, Calvin Turner appeared and offered him a spare regulator. Don grabbed it and breathed deeply, grateful to still be alive. Still, the incident was far from over. Don had taken in too much air during his dive, and some of it had filled his stomach instead of just his lungs. As he rose toward the surface, the pressure in the water dropped, and the air inside his body started to expand. He tried to let the air out, but he could not. The pressure and pain kept building. Don knew he had to get to the surface quickly or risk getting decompression sickness, which can be fatal. He pushed on, feeling incredible pain as the gas inside him kept growing. By the time he made it out of the water, his belly looked like he was 9 months pregnant. Once out of the water, Don pulled the regulator from his mouth and screamed. But the pain did not stop. He continued to suffer for 12 more hours. The way his body reacted was something no one had ever seen before. At first, they thought he had suffered an embolism, a condition where air becomes trapped in the lungs as it expands. He was taken to the Brooke Army Medical Center to be treated in a recompression chamber. This treatment mimics diving pressure and is meant to help air bubbles in the body dissolve safely. Sadly, the therapy did not ease his suffering. Later, Don was moved to another hospital. A new doctor finally decided to do X-rays. That was when they discovered what was wrong. His stomach wall had burst. The injury had caused a dangerous infection called peritonitis. It was a miracle he was still alive. The damage was like having 5 burst appendixes all at once. When the surgeon opened Don's swollen belly, it was as if he had sliced into a fully inflated basketball. As Don recovered in the hospital from his serious injuries, the effort to locate the missing divers continued. A new expert was brought in to assist. His name was Don Broad, a 46-year-old diver from Austin. He had a tough, no-nonsense personality and had long been intrigued by Jacobs, well since his early years growing up in El Campo. Don Broad went down into the water and made his way to the entrance of the deepest passage. There, he saw a light that had been dropped by one of the lost divers, still glowing in the water. Just beyond it, he noticed a corridor full of gravel. He believed this was the spot where the bodies were trapped. Broad quickly understood the danger the young divers had faced. Kent and Mark must have been digging with their hands or tools, pushing gravel backward to go deeper into the cave. There's no doubt that their bravery had placed them in a fatal situation, risking their lives just to explore a few more feet of underwater stone. Broad knew that trying to reach them now was incredibly dangerous. He believed the only way to remove their remains safely was to remove all the gravel, beginning from the top and working down. 2 days later, help arrived in the form of a white recompression chamber brought on a flatbed truck. It looked like a space capsule and belonged to the Schaefer Diving Company. The families of the missing young men had hired the company to carry out the recovery. Louis Schaefer, the owner, felt hopeful that the mission would succeed. He led the first dive himself. As he descended into the well, he could still be seen from above until he reached the 25-foot mark. There, when he got a clear view of the final passage's entrance, he shouted, "God Almighty!" shocked by what he saw. Later that day, the diving team got to work. They used a large suction hose to pull gravel up from 60 feet deep, sending it out into the nearby creek. The divers also collected bigger stones by hand, placed them into sacks, and had other volunteers pull them up to the surface using ropes. But the task was far harder than expected. Every time they made progress, more gravel would slide back in. For every foot cleared, another seemed to take its place. Despite the difficulty, the team kept going. They worked long hours under intense pressure. But soon, the money ran out. The search had already cost too much. When the crew returned to the site after a short pause, they discovered that the space they had cleared had nearly filled in again. It was as if all their work had been undone in just 2 days. The job was not only dangerous and tiring, but it also now seemed endless. They continued working, even though they were no longer being paid. But it was no use. Another team of divers from a company called Brown and Root was brought in. State Senator Chet Brooks had sent them to offer a second opinion. After reviewing the conditions, they agreed with what Schaefer's team had finally come to accept. The risk was too high. The most reasonable decision was to leave the bodies where they were and close off the well for good, seeing that a terrific gravel bed stands as the greatest terror in the Jacobs well. Who would have imagined that such a thing would position itself as the most fatal part of the well? 12 days after Kent Maupin and Mark Brashear disappeared inside Jacobs well, the search officially ended. Whatever happened in that narrow, dark space stayed hidden. No one could say for sure what went wrong, only that the well had claimed 2 more lives. People all over, from friends, family, to fellow divers left on the surface, were left with pain and endless questions. Many wondered why they took the risk, and probably what exactly they saw in that chamber that made them keep going. For Kent, it may have been the dream of going farther than anyone else. For Mark, perhaps it was about following a friend he looked up to, sharing a final dive that became their last. The facts are few, but the sadness remains. 2 people went into the water full of hope and were never seen alive again. Kent's story was well known in the diving community and beyond. Seeing his remains using an underwater drone after so long was both sad and important. This was not just a discovery of a body, but a reminder of the risks people take to push boundaries. The drone mission proved that technology could reach places humans could not safely go. But it also showed how dangerous Jacobs well really was. Despite its beauty, it remained a place of mystery and loss. The team knew they had uncovered something that would stay with them forever. In the days that followed, more people learned about the discovery. The name Kent Maupin was spoken with respect and sorrow. His story, once just a warning, became a real reminder of the dangers hidden beneath the water surface. Jacob's Well is still there, deep and dark, with secrets that have yet to be fully uncovered. The drone explorer's journey revealed some of those secrets, but also left many questions unanswered. What exactly happened to Kent? Could anyone else ever safely explore the fourth chamber? These questions remain, echoing in the quiet water. For now, the discovery of Kent's remains was an emotional moment. Jacob's Well holds a powerful story of bravery, loss, and the mystery of the unknown. The drone's flight into its depths gave the world a clear picture of this hidden place, and the price paid by those who dared to explore it. The site of Jacob's Well still stands today. It is still a place of beauty and mystery, but also a place that reminds people of how dangerous nature can be. The fourth chamber remains mostly untouched, a tight passage that has taken more than it has ever given back. Let's get into some details about the well and its state today. Jacob's Well. A scary and deceptive beauty. Jacob's Well is more than just a swimming hole. It's the mouth of a vast underwater cave system that stretches deep into the earth. The opening is about 12 feet wide, leading to a vertical drop of approximately 30 feet. From there, the cave continues downward at an angle, weaving through a series of chambers and narrow passages. Historically, the well was a powerful artesian spring, fed by the Trinity Aquifer. In the early 20th century, it gushed water at a rate of 170 gallons per second, shooting up to 6 feet into the air. However, excessive groundwater pumping has diminished its flow, and in recent years, the spring has ceased flowing entirely during periods of drought. The beauty of Jacob's Well has drawn divers from around the world. Its crystal-clear waters have proven irresistible, leading to a series of people losing their lives over the years, with at least a dozen divers having lost their lives exploring its depths. The structure of Jacob's Well is not simple. It starts with a vertical drop, the first chamber, which goes down around 25 feet. After that, the second chamber adds about 35 more feet, getting deeper and darker. The third chamber is different. It does not go straight down. Instead, it slopes slowly and gets tighter the deeper it goes, ending at about 75 feet below the surface. It is at this point that a narrow hole leads into the most feared part of the well, the fourth chamber. This final space, hidden behind the third, had been entered by some before. Sadly, most of them never came back out. The path was tight, the light dim, and the pressure great. The water could become cloudy without warning, and it was easy to lose direction. Many called it a trap, and even experienced divers had given up on exploring it further. One of the most dangerous sections is known as the Final Squeeze, a narrow passage that has trapped several divers. The cave system's complexity is a significant factor in its danger. Divers must navigate tight passages, sudden drop-offs, and spots where mud can quickly make it hard to see. The third and fourth chambers are particularly hazardous, with false exits and narrow squeezes that have led to multiple fatalities. While the mysteries of Jacob's Well continue to draw curiosity, they also serve as a reminder of the importance of caution and respect for nature's power. The well's beauty masks its dangers, and even experienced divers can find themselves in life-threatening situations. For those considering exploring such environments, proper training, equipment, and adherence to safety protocols are essential. The stories of those who have perished in Jacob's Well show the need for vigilance and the recognition that some places are best left unexplored. Efforts to improve safety have included installing metal grates to restrict access to the most dangerous sections and implementing stricter regulations for divers. However, the well continues to attract curious minds, some of whom ignore warnings and go into forbidden areas. The drone footage from Jacob's Well sparked international interest, with viewers around the world captivated by the mysterious images. The well's reputation as one of the most dangerous dive sites has only grown, drawing comparisons to other locations like the Eagle Nest Sinkhole in Florida and the Temple of Doom in Mexico. These sites share common traits: beautiful yet deceptive environments that attract divers into dangerous situations. The beauty and curiosity of the unknown and the desire to conquer nature's challenges drive many to take risks, sometimes with fatal consequences. The mouth of Jacob's well is round, about 12 feet across. The entrance leads into the depths of the earth, through a clear blue pool. Long ago, this opening pushed out streams of water from deep underground, spraying up 6 feet into the air. That was back in the year 1924, when the spring was still gushing freely. At the time, it poured out about 170 gallons of water every second, all fed by a huge underground water source called the Trinity Aquifer. But times have changed. The water no longer bursts out the way it used to. A company named Aqua Texas, part of a bigger group called Essential Utilities, has been drawing large amounts of water from the aquifer. This has caused water levels to drop. As a result, the strong flow of the spring has slowed, until only a gentle ripple remains on the creek's surface. For the first time in recorded history, Jacob's well stopped flowing completely in the year 2000. It happened again in the years 2008, 2011, 2013, and 2022. The loss of this water source has led to serious efforts to protect and conserve the spring and the land around it. In the year 2010, Hays County stepped in to save the area. They bought 50 acres of land around the well. A group called the Wimberley Valley Watershed Association also handed over 31 acres, joining it with the county's land to make a protected space, now called the Westridge Tract. Together, they now manage 80 acres of land, trying to shield Jacob's well from future harm. Now, with protection from the county and groups working to save it, there's hope that Jacob's well might one day flow again. But the secrets hidden beneath its surface may never fully come to light. Jacob's well is no longer just a quiet spring in Texas. It has become a reminder of the deep mysteries our planet still holds, and how terrifying those mysteries can be when we dare to look too closely.